Fourth, we've won. We're the law now, and we're going to be signing the paychecks, so from now on you do what we tell you. Morehouse folded up the phone to cheers and applause from the group around him, and turned to them. Bold words, he said. Let's make them good, comrades. Jock's got scout cars out and he will be giving me regular reports, said Morehouse. Number 1 Brigade will handle everything from Bothell on north. The other 2 brigades will need to secure the east side and downtown. The most important thing he mentioned is that this seemingly spontaneous police riot looks organized. I agree. I don't think it's just some drunken federal hoodlums out on a spree. It has a political purpose. Somebody in D.C. must have tipped the FATPO off as to what was coming down. And apparently they intend to convey their displeasure to Miss Chelsea by hijacking the peace process. If these federal goons allowed to just run berserk and make it clear to everybody that they are not bound by and will ignore any ceasefire, then that's the whole Longview conference scuppered right there, before it even begins. They're trying to strangle the Republic in the cradle. We have to slap them down, and that's going to be hard, because they're not only better armed than we are, but there's a hell of a lot more of them. We don't have the manpower to go storming through Seattle like a panzer division, but we can move and strike in the dark and inflict as much damage on the enemy as possible. We can make it equally clear to a watching world that we consider ourselves to be in a position of authority now, and we will exert that authority. The disparity in numbers is not insurmountable, sir, said Cody stoutly. I'm no military strategist, but I remember reading in Clausewitz that successful attack takes about 4 times as much in manpower and supplies as defense. Somehow we need to make them attack us. Morehouse smiled at him. I don't think this is exactly Waterloo, son, and we sure as hell don't have Marshal Blucher coming up on our flanks to pull our chestnuts out of the fire like Wellington did, he said with a chuckle. But I see your point, and I believe that the maxim still holds true. Defense does still require less, especially when it's fought on what's called interior lines, which is one of the reasons that Israel was always able to withstand massive attacks from poorly trained, poorly equipped, and poorly led Arab armies. That and a blank check from the United States, of course. Okay, let's see if we can set up some interior lines within the east side of Seattle and work out tactical situations where they walk into our traps. Morehouse called for his briefcase from Dex, and he pulled out a map of Seattle. He studied it while he rubbed his chin. I think we need to deploy by sectors to catch the fatties in transit when they move through each sector. The regular NVA companies need to set up ambushes on the main streets and approaches to the bridges to hit the fatties when they move through those areas. Let the SS do the actual search and destroy. Okay, and where would the SS be, sir? Asked Bells. When we went on nationwide alert early this morning, Colonel Wingfield got his men together in 2 action groups as we've temporarily designated them, said Morehouse. One of them is to the south, somewhere down around Lake Taps. The second is to the east of here, near Issaquah, I believe. And if they're not already coming into the city, they will be as soon as I can get hold of Carter. The Issaquah Action Group can move into the east side and give us a hand here. Okay, I think I get you, Red, said Barrow, looking over Morehouse's shoulder at the map. Captain DeBella, you need to get all your accompany people in here, Sammy Feet's crew and Charlie Wingate. Joe, get on the horn to Sanderson, and get C Company to rendezvous here as well. Oh, and those Russian muscle men whose names I can never pronounce. I think they were some kind of weightlifting team back in the motherland. We use them for specialty jobs requiring a heavy hand, he explained to Morehouse. They're definitely ultra-violent, agreed Barrow. Speaking of things Russian, where has the brigade quartermaster stashed those AK-74s that we were issued from that big shipload? Also a big cache at the Black Hole of Calcutta, plus smaller stashes of a few weapons and some ammo with volunteers' places around town, said Dortmunder. Okay, Joe, get D&E companies to muster at the Black Hole and have the quartermaster tool them up, Barrow ordered. Break out all the long arms and ammo. Also, RPGs, grenades, machine guns, Laws rockets, and everything else we've got. Tell everybody that tonight we get to play with our toys. Anything goes. He took the map from Morehouse and studied it. The fatties will be coming and going into the east side in a north-south line from their barracks on Northeast 132nd Street. Plus we'll be dealing with that bunch that took over the main police station in Redmond a while back, and also from their barracks in Renton. I presume they'll be using their usual APVs, Strikers, and Humvees, but there may be helicopters as well. Damn, I wish we had some Stingers or SAMs. I'd love to bring down some choppers tonight. We need to move into these areas as soon as it gets completely dark, here and here and here. He circled some places on the map. We set up ambushes on any overpass or area overlooking the freeways where we can pot at any feds that go by, and also as many of the exits and on-ramps as we can. Make sure there's at least a couple of RPGs with all the teams who are assigned to freeway access ramps, because coming or going, their vehicles will have to slow down and we can hit them. Any extra men we have, we lay out ambushes at likely places where FATPOs will pass. We're going to be spread really thin. Do we go out in combat wearing this getup, sir? Asked Cody, indicating his uniform. Wearing a dress? Asked Emily. I mean, not that this new outfit isn't just très chic and all, but it might be hard to dry clean and full of bullet holes. No, decided Barrow. Sorry to deny you kids a historic first, but you need to wear something a little more practical. You guys go change. I'm lucky my clothes are upstairs, Cody told Emily. I wouldn't want to go running and crawling through the dirt in cut-off jeans. You're a remarkably slim youth, not to say girly boy, she said. Any chance you got some long jeans I can borrow? I don't want to skin my knobby knees, beautiful as they may be in the eye of some beholders. Sure, said Cody. When they came back down, they were both wearing jeans, running shoes, and long-sleeved winter lumberjack shirts Cody had dug out of his limited wardrobe. It may get chilly out there tonight, he'd explained when he handed Emily the shirt and a pullover sweater. You two go out and see Eddie in the garage, ordered Bells. Since it looks like we're going to have a real blowout tonight, he's got some more stuff for you. They buckled on their field belts they had already received from Hagen that afternoon. In addition to his canteen, Cody had 4 35-round magazines for his AK-74 in canvas pouches, and several 20-round magazines as well, manufactured especially for the Russian assault rifle by an NVA quartermaster. He also carried the Makarov pistol in a holster and several extra clips for it in his shirt pocket. Nightshade had almost 400 rounds for her M16 in similar pouches. They went out to the garage where Eddie Hagen, who was acting quartermaster since the previous man had been arrested, had pushed several folding tables together to serve as an armory bench. Procedure: you may get into a sitch out there tonight where you two don't want to get recognized. Put them on your heads and you can pull them down if you think you need to. Secondly, everybody gets 2 of these beauties. He stooped to a case on the floor and handed them 2 hand grenades apiece. U.S. Army military issue in cylindrical cases of heavy cardboard with a metal clip on the side. These cardboard-carrying canisters clip onto your web belt like this, Hagen said, showing them how to wear them. If you want to use one, just pull the top off the canister and pull it out with a firm grip on the detonating mechanism. Do not be a dumbass and try to tug them out of the canister by the ring on the pin. Once you pull the pin, throw the damned thing immediately. None of this popping the spoon and counting to 3.5 shit. Always carry them 1 to each side, or behind you on your hip. These things should be safe until you pull the pins, but you still don't want to be crawling around in the prone position with them under your body. A final word of advice. You guys be sure to fill those canteens, Hagen told them. You may think you won't need water in the middle of a city. That's what we thought in Tehran. Take my word for it, fill the canteens. By this time, other volunteers from A and C companies were beginning to arrive, including a group of 4 huge, square-built, muscle-bound men with bullet heads who were muttering among themselves in Russian. Hagen leaned out of the garage and yelled at them, "Hey, Tovarich, come here. I got something for you guys." When the 4 of them crowded into the garage, Hagen plunked down one of the company's 3 carefully hoarded belt-fed light machine guns. "You guys are from Mother Russia, right? Did you ever use one of these?" he asked. "Sure," said one of the Russians. "Is PKM. I carry one in Chechnya. Is good gun." "Okay, well, I'll give you this one. What's your name?" "Ivanovich," said the Russian in a deep, melodious voice. "I had to ask." "Okay. I don't know if there's supposed to be a spare barrel for this weapon. I don't have a manual, at least not one I can read. We didn't get a spare with it if there is one, so be careful not to overheat it. No extra barrel, said Ivan. Barrel of PKM is lined with titanium alloy, so weapon does not overheat unless soldier plays silly buggers and fire 1,000-round belt all at once, no pause. Few seconds between bursts keep cool enough so gun keep on shoot. You have calibration key? It's taped to the butt, said Hagen, pointing. Is good gun, but every 10-12,000 rounds must reset firing pin gap. You have belts and assault boxes? Right here, said Hagen, hoisting a couple of light metal boxes up into the table. 250-round boxes, plus here's a stack of 100-round belts. We asked some of our sources to get us these PKMs, specifically because M60 seconds were getting hard to come by. And these weapons chamber 7.62 NATO rounds, which is ammunition we can get easily. Ivanovich hoisted the weapon expertly, dropped the strap over his left shoulder, pulled back and locked the bolt, and clipped on the assault box. He drew forth the tip of the belt, hooked it into place, and released the bolt. Karasho, we go kill gendarmes now. Cody spoke up curiously. Comrade, if you don't mind my asking, someone said you guys were part of a weightlifting team back in. Not weightlift, he explained. Wrestling. We come to America to do professional wrestle for WWU. 2 tag teams. My brother Boris, who is this man, along with myself, we are the Crazy Cossacks. Anton Semyonovich and Grigory Pavelovich are the Russian Bear and Rasputin, Mad Monk, because he have beard. We stay to make revolution against Jews, is only fair, since Jews make revolution against Russia in 1917. Hey, who says all immigration is bad? Asked Hagen. Cody and Emily went back inside to the rec room where the television was still on, monitoring the news broadcasts. How's everyone taking the president's announcement, sir? He asked Joe Dortmunder. The talking heads are screaming to high heaven, replied Dortmunder. Chelsea really pissed in the punch bowl. It didn't do the poor woman much good to wrap the pill in all that waffle. The media elite knows surrender when they see it, or think they see it. He turned up the volume. A CBS News anchor, a white man with a reputation for sterling political correctness, was almost spluttering in outrage. He was speaking to a panel of equally appalled liberals, blacks, and Jews. There simply isn't any way that this astounding development tonight can be regarded as anything other than giving in to terrorism, he ranted. Not just giving in to terrorism, but actually...
I mean, what agenda is the president going in there with?
What in God's name does she think is going to be discussed at any such conference? The NVA will be demanding that we sit back and allow them to carve off a big chunk of the United States of America to form some bizarre Fourth Reich ruled by some cartoonish supervillain as Führer, or whatever the hell. I know the president will deny that there is any chance of that happening, and it's just being done to stop the violence. But the mere fact that such a meeting could take place, and such a thing even be discussed, well, words just fail me. They continued to fail him for another 5 minutes, until Dortmunder got bored and changed the channel. The screen now showed several burning buildings in downtown Seattle. The voiceover was a woman. The Office of the Governor of Washington State and the Director of Public Safety for Seattle have confirmed that a number of officers of the federal anti-terrorist police organization seem to have gone on a kind of vandalism and violence spree, which is believed to have resulted in several deaths and a number of injuries. This is apparently a spontaneous protest on the part of the officers against the president's startling speech tonight, wherein she stated that she was ordering the FATPO and all other United States military and law enforcement bodies to cease offensive operations against domestic terrorism in the Pacific Northwest as a prelude to what appears to be some kind of peace conference scheduled to begin in Longview, Washington on August 1st, at which the outlawed Northwest Volunteer Army will be a participant. A dazed Seattle police chief appeared on the screen at some kind of hastily organized press conference. Yes, there has been extensive damage to property, including some arson, and there has been a lot of reported violence against citizens, and yes, it does appear to be carried out by federal law enforcement officers. There is simply not much that the Seattle Police Department can do, in view of the fact that under the Patriot Act these people's federal mandate overrides our purely local jurisdiction. About all we can do is advise people to and hope that the federal authorities will re-establish control over what I am sure is a very small minority of FATPO committing these acts. I can understand why they're upset, in view of the president's speech tonight. Beautiful, said Dortmunder with a grin. The so-called real cops are sitting on their hands trembling in terror, while a bunch of crazed niggers and Mexicans with American guns go berserk and slaughter and burn at will. If we can stop them tonight, or at least fight them, then we can start making a moral claim to run the country. Is it happening anywhere else, Joe? Asked Red Morehouse, sticking his head in the door. So it seems none of the other fatty units are so indisciplined as ours, eh? Yeah, this is looking for and more like it's a political demonstration. One of the television station's camera crews had worked up enough courage to approach one of the prowling FATPO trucks, and a screaming negroid face suddenly appeared on the screen. We sending out a message to Miss Chelsea Clinton and to Congress and every goddamn motherfucking white supremacist piece o' shit in the Northwest, the FATPO raged. Dey ain't gon' be no goddamn treaty with dese racist sons o' bitches, and they ain't gon' be no goddamn meeting in Longview or anywhere else. Every day we put our black and brown butts on the line out here for dis government, and we come back every night with dead bodies, and you think we gon' put up with this shit? Chelsea think she gon' give dese motherfuckers 3 states. Bullshit. She gon' give the black folks 6 or 7 states in the South foist, and she gon' give us 40 acres and a mule while she at it. I'm telling all you motherfuckers now. Dortmunder muted the set. By now there were more volunteers in the house than Cody had ever seen in one place, almost 70 people. The house was crowded and there was inevitably some spillage onto the lawn. Sir, I think the neighbors are starting to notice all this activity around the house, Bells reported to Barrow. I've seen a number of them in the houses on the right and left and also across the street, peeping out the windows. Suppose they call the cops? Well, we probably would have had to abandon this safe house anyway after tonight, decided Barrow. Let's go out with panache. Barrow went to a closet and took out a long wooden flagpole from which he unfurled a blue, white, and green Northwest tricolor flag. He walked right out of the front of the house and stuck the flag into the bracket on the porch, which had in the past been used by various owners and tenants of the mansion to display the American flag and also the silly seasonal yuppie flags with pumpkins for Halloween, bunnies for Easter, etc. Many of the armed volunteers followed Barrow out of the house and raised a cheer as the tricolor hung and then billowed in the light warm breeze, hoisting their Kalashnikovs in the air and firing a few shots in salute to the flag of the new nation. "Cease fire, you guys," yelled Bobby Bells. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Hey, Captain, there's a truce on, remember?" Barrow quipped. "We don't have to worry about offensive operations from the enemy." As if in mocking answer, there was a burst of small arms and automatic weapons fire in the distance. "That's been going on for a while, sir," commented Bells. "Sounds like it's coming from up around 148th Street. Well, the neighbors need to get used to the sound of gunfire and the flag," said Barrow. "They will be seeing and hearing a lot more of both. As to calling the police, from what I see on the news, I think the boys in blue will have other things to do tonight than come out here." A volunteer came up to them on the lawn. "Sirs, Colonel Morehouse asks if you could step inside, please. Something's come up." Inside, Morehouse told them, "We just heard that the fatties have taken over the Eastgate shopping mall in Bellevue. They apparently have taken a number of people hostage and are abusing them in various ways, making them dance by shooting at their feet like drunken cowboys, maybe working themselves up to murder them. We can't wait for the SS. We need to get some people over there and see what we can do." "I'll go, sir," said Bells. "Very good, Captain. Pick a team and see what the hell is going on over there. If you can put the kibosh on the situation without getting wiped out yourself, do it. I will give you the cell number of one of Jock Graham's kids who is at the mall now, hiding and observing the situation. He's got his phone on vibrate so you can call him without the phone ringing and tipping the enemy. Ironic, isn't it? You get to open the above-ground phase of the Northwest Revolution by defending the ultimate American temple of Mammon, a shopping mall." Bells took his own personal crew with him, This consisted of Cody, Nightshade, Jumping Jack Flash, Thumper, Eddie Hagan, Farmer Brown, and 7 other volunteers from A Company. He also took the 4 Russians along with the PKM machine gun and several thousand rounds of ammunition. He described the situation they would be going into to them in the kitchen. "Sir, I used to work at the Eastgate Mall," spoke up Jumping Jack Flash. "At the Royal Britannia Fish and Chips. Our nosh came frozen in packets, the potatoes were from Idaho and the fish were from some company in Japan, but they still wanted that English accent up front. The trouble is, I had to pretend I was a Cockney. You Yanks have been watching too much BBC. Someone needs to tell you that not everyone in the UK was born within the sound of Bow Bells or on Coronation Street. Anyway, there is an employee's entrance at the very back of the mall, in the sub-level parking, which I doubt the fatties know about and which I'm pretty sure we could use to gain entry, depending on how many sentries the enemy has posted." "What about the mall security cameras?" asked Bells. "This door and staircase aren't covered by the cameras for some reason, sir," replied the Englishman. "Don't know why. Perhaps the contractors who built the place cut some corners on equipment. It was an open secret among the employees that when one came in late or wanted to slip out early or go and smoke something, that was the entrance and exit to use. There's a staircase inside and it should get us up onto the mezzanine level of the mall, where we can get a deco at the situation. Okay, you come with me in the caddy and show me where." Also Cody and Nightshade, rapidly Bells assigned other vehicles. They took several cars and a pickup truck with 4 Kalashnikov-toting volunteers in the back, a tricolor flag flying defiantly from the truck. The mall was only a few minutes away from the NVA base house in Medina. They drove carefully and slowly through the back streets in the gathering twilight gloom, on the lookout for any federal presence or anything that might indicate an ambuscade. Several passing. Motorists saw the truck with the tricolor and the armed men in the back, and turned away in flight with screeching tires. The volunteers made it to Eastgate Mall and into the lowest ground-level parking area without running into any FATPO patrols, although as they came in they could see the Federals' armored trucks and Humvees pulled up in a circle around the mall's main entrance. "That door to the employees' back stairs is just behind a concrete column," said Jack. They pulled around the corner and ran headlong into a Bellevue police cruiser, sitting parked, its blue lights silently flashing. "Bloody hell," exclaimed Jack. "It's the old Bill." 2 cops were sitting in the car, and they got out quickly, hands on their pistols. Bells braked the vehicle and said, "Get out of the car, slowly. Don't pull down on them. Don't do nothing until I say or they do something first." He opened his door and stepped out, his glowing white owl clenched in his teeth. "Shit! That's Bobby Bells!" Cody heard one of the cops gasp to another. The name is DeBella, actually, called Bells. "Keep him in the holster, guys. I just want a word, okay?" The 2 policemen had already taken in the cars behind the caddy, and they saw the volunteers jumping out of the back of the pickup with their AKs, and the 4 large men getting out of their van with the machine gun. Bells asked them, "What the hell are you guys doing skulking out here? There's people you're supposed to serve and protect getting hurt inside." "Yeah, and about 50 crazy niggers and spics with machine guns," said the older of the cops. "We called for backup an hour ago. Nobody came." "We came," said Bells. "You guys hear the president tonight?" "We heard," said the older cop. "Then you know what it means," DeBella told them. "It ain't all settled yet. That's gonna have to wait for the big sit-down in Longview, but tonight the President of the United States raised the white flag. We've won. We're the law now, and we're gonna be signing the paychecks, so from now on you do what we tell you. Right now it means that we also get to go in there and do your jobs for you. As of tonight, those federal goons in there showing their butts aren't law enforcement officers anymore. They're the criminals now. Hell, they always were. You want to sit this one out, fine by me. But I want your word that you will do for us what you've been doing for the fatties for the past hour. Nothing. Come on, guys, it's almost over and you've almost made it. Don't pick tonight of all nights to end up on a slab." The 2 cops looked at one another. The older man threw up his hands. "Sure, knock yourselves out," he said. Bells turned away from them, already forgotten, and dialed the cell phone. "We're down at the door, but it's locked," he told the person on the other end. "You gotta come down and let us in. Can you make it without being seen?" One of the policemen stepped forward. "This is our beat, so we have a master key," he said. He pulled a ring of keys off his belt and opened the steel door. It gave into a staircase. "We're in," said Bells into his phone. "Meet us at the top of the stairs." "What are you wearing, McDonald's?" "Well, you break today, so we'll try and not shoot you." The two cops were talking among themselves. The older man said, "Hey, Bells, mind if we tag along? I mean, it is supposed to be our job, right?" "Yeah, sure, the more the merrier," DeBella replied. The cops opened their trunk and pulled out flak vests and shotguns, and a grenade launcher with several tear gas rounds. "CS gas," one of them said. "It might come in handy." "I think it's going to take more than gas," said DeBella, jerking his cigar towards the door. "It sounds like Soul Train on a bad night in there." Through the open door, the volunteers could hear a cacophony of noise, including several gunshots, a blaring gangsta rap song, and the raving sound of drunken Negroid voices. The volunteers and their police escort climbed the stairs slowly in a line, their gun muzzles pointed upward to cover the staircase. The Russians brought up the rear, Ivan Ivanovich hefting the machine gun and the other three toting AK-74 seconds and an extra assault box of ammo for the PKM apiece. One of the cops looked at Emily in sudden surprise. "Hey, you're a girl," he said. Emily turned to Cody. "See, I told you." Just inside the upstairs door, a teenaged boy with blonde hair and a slightly long and unkempt cut appeared. He was wearing a brown and yellow service shirt and a paper McDonald's hat. "Hi, guys. I'm Ted from B Company, number 2 Brigade. You the famous Bobby Bells?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm the famous fucking Bells volunteer," said DeBella in an irritated voice. "Jesus, with all that racket we don't even need to whisper. What the hell is going on up there? How many of them are there? And why the hell did they come here in the first place?" "There's about 50 of them, near as I can count," said Ted. "The reason they came in here was the WKPR FM radio was doing a live radio broadcast from the main floor, in front of Dorfman's Menswear, some advertising thing. They took over the show. They're making the disc jockeys spin hate-whitey rap songs and funky monkey music. And in between, they get on the mic and rant and rave, babbling about how there will be no treaty in Longview, no surrender to wicked racism. Dagon kill all us racist honky muthafukas. Hey, NVA, here we is. Why don't you come out and get you pale asses capped? You get the idea. They've got about 20 white people hostage, and they say if anybody at the radio station cuts them off the air, they're going to start killing people. They keep wandering around stealing and breaking stuff, and going in and out, so there could be a fatty anywhere. They grabbed a bunch of people, including the radio crew, and they're holding them hostage, beating on them. I think they've raped some women. General negritude." "Any of them up on the mezzanine level?" asked Bells. "Not at the moment, no," said Ted. "When they first came storming in, they went up there and smashed up some stuff, shot out windows, looted the boutiques and jewelry stores, and generally made a mess. Plus, they cleaned out all the fried chicken and the Taco Bell, and they made me give them all the burgers we had up. Now they're all back down on the main floor again. That's where the booze is. The Rite Aid has a beer and wine cooler, and they've gotten into that and helped themselves, so they're all drunk and partying now. There's a bunch of customers trapped in places around the mall, including about a dozen people in the food court where this staircase. Out, hiding behind the counters, and they'll panic and start running around and get in the line of fire if you're not hostages." "Okay, now the million-dollar question. What about the security cameras?" demanded Bells. "Place is crawling with them," said the kid. "They pan everywhere. I got here by watching the camera in the food court. It was panning the other way. This door is a blind spot." "Yeah, we got a guy that used to work here who told us that," affirmed Bells. "Used to dish up the fish at the Rule Britannia." "Yuck," said Ted. "I'd prefer Mickey D's to that grease trap." "So would I, old chap," spoke up Jack Flash from behind them. Ted chuckled. "Well, getting back to the cameras, the minute you step out the door, you'll be visible to whoever is in the security control room, unless you stay one step ahead of their sweep like I did. But that was just a few short steps from behind the counter at Mickey D's to over here, and I was able to dodge it. It's impossible for a bunch of guys like this to go unnoticed to whoever is watching the monitors." "Do we know who's in the control room?" asked Bells in a worried voice. Maybe the regular security guys, Glenn and Randy, and maybe the fatties, said Ted. I didn't see if any of them went in there or not. I was too busy hiding under the bun rack from those apes. We got one bit of luck, in that the control room is up here on the second floor. It's down a little hallway across the food court from here, just past the restrooms. Okay, let's sneak a peek, said Bells. He opened the door a short crack out onto the mezzanine floor of the shopping mall carefully. In the glittering neon and fluorescent light, he could see the wide expanse of the mall's food court with all its junk food restaurants. Chinese and fish and chips, McDonald's and vegetarian, sub-sandwiches and fried chicken. The tables and chairs weren't affixed to the floor in this food court, so they had been smashed and upended, and the floor was covered with trays and the remnants of meals, hamburgers and salads, and all kinds of goo. Bells and Cody could see about a dozen white customers cowering behind the tables and under the counters. The racket from the main floor of the mall was thunderous. We gotta check out that control room and make sure no one is going to warn them, decided Bells. I need a couple of Droogs. Pass it down, Anton and Grigory, get up here. The two huge Russians climbed the stairs to the top landing, slipping past the rest as they waited along the staircase. You guys peep out here and take a look at that security camera. You see it? See how it's going back and forth? Da, said one of them. I see it. You guys are supposed to be good at hand-to-hand. We'll see how good you are. See that sign over there that says restrooms? You're going to have to get there while avoiding the security camera. Then down that little hallway there and into the control room. Take out any fatties in there, and do it with no shooting or noise. Da-da-da, replied the Russian. We shall be as quiet as falling snow on winter night in Novosibirsk. I assume that means very quiet. Ted, is there a camera on the door of the security room itself? Ted thought hard. No, he said. There were cameras on the outside of the restroom doors to try make sure nobody conceals merchandise or sells drugs or anything, but some faggots complained about it, because they were using the men's room as part of their lifestyle, as they put it, and so the mall management took them out. This is an older mall, built before 1022 and maybe even before 9/11, and the purpose of the closed-circuit system is to catch shoplifters and vandals, not fight off a commando attack. Okay, you need to get these guys down there and get them into the control room. Can you do that? Sir, said the kid. The two Russian men gave their Kalashnikovs to Cody and Nightshade to hold, and laid down their with belts for the PKM. We follow you, Malchik, said one of them. Moments later, when the camera had swung away, the door opened and Ted and the Russians, keeping low, slipped out. They made it behind the counter of the McDonald's before the closed-circuit camera rolled back onto the court and disappeared from view. They were out of sight for several minutes. What the hell are they doing, chowing down on Big Macs? Muttered Bells in growing frustration as he peeped through the crack in the door. Then as the camera swung away, the three of them reappeared. Ted was carrying a tray stacked high with burgers and paper soft drink cups, as well as paper containers of fries. Good thinking, kid, said Bells with a nod. They'll think he's bringing them the gift of junk food and let him in. Pass it back. This may break bad and Fatty may be warned, so everybody get ready to come out this door blasting. Find yourself a firing position and duke it out with these motherfuckers. Once we go in, we go all the way. They made it to the restroom hallway and disappeared down it just as the camera swung back and covered the entrance. Whew, sighed Bells. Then there were long minutes of silence. Then 4 people, not 3, emerged, keeping down but disregarding the still panning security camera. The 4th man was a uniformed security guard, a young white man with no hat and a bruised and bloody face, who was carrying a military-issue M16 rifle. They made it back to the door to the outside staircase. Well, how'd it go? Demanded Bells. Is one nigger only, said one of the Russians. Grigory give pile driver. Busted that nappy head open like a watermelon, confirmed Ted, slightly green. He pointed to the rifle in the guard's hands. That's the fatty 16. The security guard said, My name is Glenn Dane. Ted has explained what's going on. My partner Randy is back at the control room. He'll watch, and if he sees any of them coming up here, he'll call me on my radio. I want to come with you and join the NVA. That porch monkey slammed his rifle butt into my face and his buddies maced Randy and kicked him when he was down. Broke a couple of ribs, but he can function. Let's do it. Do I have to take an oath or something? I've goddamned had it with being bullied and terrorized by these scum. Well, you won't have to worry about slipping in anything, because we're going to low-crawl into position so they don't see us, said Bells. He turned to the rest of them behind him in the stairwell. Pass this down. We can't let them see us. We all need to get down on the floor and crawl out. We got about 18 inches of what looks like concrete, probably encasing a steel girder that can stop bullets, at the bottom of those railings that overlook the main floor. That should be enough to prevent ourselves from being seen, and it should also give us some cover when we open up. I want us to get into position so when I give the signal we can sweep the goddamned ground floor. Can command about half of it from here, sir, said Ted. But there's a kind of bridge or crosswalk about 50 yards down. To cover the entire area, you'll have to put some guys on that. It will take some time to get into place. You want, then we'd better get started, said Bells. Oh Christ, what's that smell? Is that what I think it is? Ted nodded. After they got through trashing the food court, they used the floor as a toilet. I think they wanted to give us pale people a lesson in the joys of diversity and multiculturalism. Raised his voice. It didn't matter. He could barely be heard in the stairwell over the din from the raving thugs inside the "I'm sorry, but we gotta crawl through these animals' shit and piss." Literally. It isn't the first time, sir, replied Cody. We've been crawling through their excrement for years. Yeah, but tonight will be the last time, said Bells in a ringing voice. Okay, we take it slow and stay down. I'll go first and you all follow, one at a time, on your bellies low. I'll position you where I want you. You cops, get up here. The two policemen mounted the stairs. Look, I don't want those people hiding in the food court panicking when they see us and all these guns, and maybe drawing the fatties' attention up here, so I want you to come out after me and get over there behind the counters. If they see your uniforms, hopefully they'll understand we're the good guys tonight. They're used to obeying you, and more likely to do what you tell them than me. I'm putting you in charge of getting them out safely. Once we're out of this stairwell, I'm going to need you to low-crawl the civilians over to this door, then they book down the stairs. I'll call down and tell my two guys I left on our vehicles that they're coming out, okay? Got it, replied one of the cops. Boy Ted spoke up. Sir, I was just here earning my minimum wage crust flipping burgers when all this broke out, strapped. Can I get a rifle from you? You ever actually pulled a trigger in anger, kid? Asked Bells skeptically. Gotta learn sometime, said the boy. I was trained on the AK-47 though. My dad brought one home from Iraq and he let us fire it. These are 74 seconds, but it's more or less the same. Here, you can have mine. Bells handed him the rifle and several magazines. You got one up the spout and the safety's on. Stick those mags one each in your back pockets, so they don't rattle, although that probably don't matter with all that boogie-woogie down there. Okay, let's do this thing. Bells dropped down on his substantial gut, stubbed his cigar stump out on the floor, and slithered out the door. He peeked around the corner, saw no hostiles, and crawled to the edge of the abutment, looking down onto the main floor. On his way, he paused to pick up a metal napkin dispenser and pull out a handful of paper napkins. He peeped over cautiously, studied the situation for a moment, and then beckoned. The two policemen followed, one cradling a shotgun and one the tear gas launcher. They headed for the long row of junk food counters. Several of the people who were hiding behind upturned tables looked up and saw them, and the cops put fingers to their lips. One by one, the NVA volunteers snaked out of the door, and Bells pointed to where he wanted them. He handed each one a paper napkin and said, "Tear this in two, chew the pieces into a gooey ball, and stick them in your ears as earplugs. When we start shooting in here, the noise will be so loud it could break your eardrums." Several volunteers took up prone firing positions at the edge of the railing, lying flat behind the base beam. The Russians with their light machine gun he sent on a long crawl down the causeway to the bridge or crosswalk that spanned the chasm of the main mall. "Don't go out into the middle," he told them. "That will put you in our line of fire, and even though we'll be shooting downward, there will be ricochets that might hit you. Hole up along the left wall there, and wait for it to begin. Once the shooting starts, they're going to take cover behind whatever they can find, and return fire up here. I want you to run down to that yogurt stand on the far left there." Bells pointed. "That's far enough down so that you will be able to turn the machine gun on them more or less from their rear. Those you don't kill, see if you can force them out of cover for us, and try not to hit any of our own people once we get down there and close in. You getting all this? I mean, your English okay?" "We understand, Comrade Captain," Ivanovich assured him. "We were all in Chechnya. We remember how this is done. We can, what is word, wing it?" "Yeah, that's the word." He gave them their paper napkins, and the Russians moved out, flat and quick on their stomachs, Ivanovich carrying the PKM and the others with their assault boxes on their backs. Bells kept Cody and Emily beside him. "Take a look," he invited, carefully. They both risked a peek over the abutment, down into the main mall. It had been trashed even more thoroughly than the upstairs. The plate glass windows of most of the stores were riddled with bullet holes, although few were actually shattered since most were made of safety glass. The walls and windows had been spray-painted with anti-racist slogans and obscenities, including "Fuck the Republic," "Fight the Fascist Sick," and "No Surrender to Racism." There were, as nearly as Cody could tell, about 40 members of the Federal Anti-Terrorist Police Organization, strolling, dancing, or lounging around on the upholstered mall benches, lazily cradling in their laps, or on their hips M16 assault rifles, Uzi submachine guns, and a few 5.56 mm Steyr-AUG assault weapons as well. Deadly plastic things, half rifle and half submachine gun. Several of them were lording it over a small bedraggled circle of 14 or 15 white people of all ages and both sexes on the floor, who sat cross-legged with their hands clasped behind their heads, their faces hung down in shame and fear. Several of the white females had black or Mexican FATPO officers bending over them, talking to them, thrusting their hands down the women's blouses or lower. Cody could hear one prisoner sobbing and cursing her tormentor hysterically, a white FATPO officer who was also a woman, and who had already pulled off the captive's blouse and brassiere. Bandstand in the middle of the floor with a WKPR banner, and beside it was a white sound van which had been brought into the mall with the WKPR lettering and logo on the side. On the stand was a table with some radio mics and gear, and in the seat was a hapless white disc jockey surrounded by uniformed FATPO officers. His face was bloody where he had been beaten, and he seemed only semi-conscious. The FATPOs up on the bandstand were all black or Hispanic, and it seemed that a drunken argument was breaking out over what kind of music to play on the speakers, which was presumably also being broadcast over the air by the radio station. Suddenly the bawling Negroid rap song was cut off and replaced by lilting and very loud salsa music, with Spanish lyrics being sung by what appeared to be a trio of castrados. "Aw, come on, Ruiz, what the fuck is dat shit?" bawled a black FATPO, hatless, who was guarding the white prisoners. "Hey man, das los tres paraguanos paranoios," yelled back Ruiz. "Das some good mellows essay. Dat's beaner shit, is what dat is motherfucker," yelled the black. "Who you callin' a beaner, man?" demanded Ruiz. "We supposed to be defending this country against dot kind of racist bullshit essay." "If they're expecting us to come out and fight them, they aren't taking much in the way of precautions, are they?" asked Cody. "Just one guy watching the cameras tucked away up here? What the hell's wrong with them? They're supposed to be soldiers." "Sheer fucking arrogance," said Bells in disgust. "They honest to God don't think we'll come after them in a stand-up fight. These assholes have been ruling the roost in this country so long that they can't wrap their minds around the concept of white people who aren't afraid of them." While the argument over the evening's musical program progressed, Emily turned to Cody. "The three paranoid Paraguayans?" she asked in wonder. "Who the hell are they?" "Didn't anybody tell you?" replied Cody. "They're the three guys we're all out to get. That's why they're paranoid." "Shut up and let me think," snapped Bells. "How the hell are we gonna do this without getting those white people slaughtered in the crossfire?" "Well, for one thing, no grenades," said Cody. "The police procedure manual says that in a hostage situation, you're supposed to surround the scene with overwhelming force and try and talk them out," said one of the cops, who had joined them where they lay, heads down, on the polished concrete floor. "I won't dignify that with an answer," growled Bells. The salsa music was abruptly cut off and was replaced by an old soul classic, James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. A number of Spanish accents raised in shouted protest. "Sir, I don't see any way," said Cody. "We just open up and hope to God those people have sense enough to roll under any kind of cover they can find." "Captain," whispered Emily, "if they knew what was coming, they might at least be not caught by surprise and they could plan what to do. They could run into Dorfman's and hide in the coat racks or something." "And how do we warn them?" demanded Bells. "I can go down there on my own and try and get close and tell them," said Nightshade. "It's a zoo down there, complete with a cage full of baboons. They won't pay much attention to one more skinny little white girl. I could get myself captured and get thrown into their circle, then once that happens, give me a couple of minutes. When I've done the best I think I can to warn them, I'll take this rolled-up balaclava off my head as a signal. You guys start blasting, and I'll herd as many of them as I can into making a break for Dorfman's. And that will put you at ground zero when all hell breaks loose," hissed Cody. "Okay, if you turkeys up here just won't shoot at me, and keep those fatties' heads down so they don't shoot me," she sighed. "Do it," he said. "Jesus, Bells," protested Cody. "Do it," Bells repeated, ignoring him. Nightshade took off her field belt and pulled all her M16 magazines out of her pocket, and without a word slithered off around the corner to make for the nearest staircase. "She didn't even give you a goodbye kiss," commented Bells. "That's not funny, sir," said Cody. "No, it's not," he agreed. "Make yourself useful, troop. Go up and down the line here, tell the rest of them what's happening, and tell them to wait for me to get up and fire first. They're going to have to get up, sight in, select a target, and fire fast before the fatties can break out of their drunken stupor down there and start taking cover and firing back. And tell them do not shoot the chick in the blue plaid shirt." By the time Cody crawled back to his position beside Bells and peeped slowly and carefully through a drain pipe he'd found that gave him a restricted view of the floor, the salsa music was back on, and the dispute between the black and Mexican FATPOs on the bandstand was becoming heated and raucous, with some serious shoving and getting into faces. He was amazed to see that Nightshade was now part of the circle of prisoners, squatting with her back to them, fingers interlocked on the back of her head. "How did she do it?" he asked in wonder. Rastus went up on the bandstand and started shoving that Mexican around who took off his nigger music to play paranoid Paraguayan music instead, and there was a squabble over what DVD to put in, and it distracted them all for a moment, said Bells. Including the dyke who was pawing that poor broad's tits. Nightshade just slipped out of nowhere and joined the circle. Cody looked again, and he could see Emily leaning over towards the man on her left, no doubt whispering to him. "And none of them noticed?" he asked incredulously. "My God, these fools are incompetent. Holy Mother, look at the bastards. They're drunk out of their minds. Half of them aren't even wearing their body armor." "This will be shooting fish in a barrel," said Bells. A white FATPO officer with a buzz cut, apparently a senior one, suddenly appeared on the bandstand and settled the dispute among his men with a few sharp words. The salsa music cut off, and the man picked up the microphone and began to speak. "This is Colonel Wendell C. Josephson of the Federal Anti-Terrorist Police Organization, and I have something to say to you people out there in radio land. More importantly, I have something to say to the politicians in Washington. For almost all of my life, I have fought as a proud American soldier in the War on Terror, in Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Syria and Egypt. For almost 5 years now, I have battled against terror here in the Pacific Northwest, first as an agent for the Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms Enforcement Division, and then as an officer in FATPO. I have had the privilege of commanding some of the finest young men and women that America has to offer in this battle, many of whom are with me here tonight in the Eastgate Mall here in Bellevue. I have also had the painful duty of bringing many of them back to their stations dead. More times than I can count, I have had to write emails to the parents and families of my boys and girls, telling them how a beloved son, daughter, husband or wife or significant other died in action against the wicked and cowardly forces of racism and hatred and bigotry, not in a foreign land, but here in our own country. Like all of us here in the PO, we undertook this risk willingly and without thought for our own lives, because America called and we could do no other than to answer. We served America faithfully and with honor and courage, and we will continue to do so. But tonight we heard something on television, from the very lips of our Commander-in-Chief, which has so horrified and appalled us, that I simply could not restrain this brave band of brothers and sisters. The colonel ranted on in red, white, and blue. Through his vantage point via the drainpipe, Cody could see that the lesbian FATPO officer had suddenly noticed Emily. She strode over, muscular and with a haircut so short as to be almost a crew cut. She looked down at the girl, grabbed the woolly pea-cap off her head, and shook it out. The knitted eye-holes and mouth seam of the balaclava appeared. There could be very little excuse for wearing such headgear in July. The FATPO started fumbling with her holstered pistol and turned to shout a warning to the others. Seated as she was, Nightshade didn't try to get up, which would have wasted precious seconds and gotten her killed. Her right wrist twirled. Cody could see a glint as the switchblade leaped out and locked into place. Then she drove it right into the dyke's meaty inner thigh. Then, quick as a striking snake, she slashed to the left kneecap. The woman screamed in bestial rage and fell on the girl in the blue plaid shirt. "In va!" roared Bobby Bells, leaping to his feet. "Now!" For a brief fraction of a second, the stunned FATPOs looked up and saw a dozen leveled weapons aimed at them over the railings above them, and then the mall exploded. The noise was beyond description, especially as in some way the DVD player on the radio station's sound deck was hit or jostled, and the paranoid Paraguayans started to wail again for about the first 30 seconds until a bullet hit something, and their paranoia was silenced forever. The acoustics inside the mall echoed and re-echoed the gunfire until the whole structure of glass and steel and concrete was actually vibrating sonically and giving off a sound of itself, like a free-hanging bell that has been struck hard and lingers. It was like being inside a thunderbolt as hundreds of rounds went off. Cody fired and fired, his AK on semi-auto, and in the scrambling mass of bellowing and twirling enemies below he seemed to see that he got some hits, dust jumping on body armor, blood splattering, although who could tell who was really firing which bullets. His magazine emptied and his bolt locked back, and he saw one of the railings behind which he was kneeling pop and a small neat hole appear. The fatties were shooting back. He and Jumping Jack Flash shoved an overturned table up against the railing to provide at least a little cover, and jammed new magazines into their weapons. "Do you see Nightshade?" he yelled at Jack, who pointed in a general downward direction. Cody rolled to the right, covered down behind the base of the railings, and risked a peek over the top. He saw bodies lying all over the floor, but none of the hostages seemed to be among them. Then motion caught his eye, and he saw Nightshade and the lesbian FATPO rolling together across the concourse floor, the dyke with her pistol out, now, and Emily's left hand on her wrist trying to deflect the muzzle while she tried to stab with her right through a flak vest. The two women's faces were glued together. They seemed to be kissing in an obscene parody of diversity. Cody grabbed up her field belt, tossed his arm through it and shouldered it, then picked up his own rifle in his right hand and Emily's M16 in his left. He got up and ran down the left-hand deck of the mezzanine, past the shops full of glittery junk and third-world trash and unnecessary plastic objects. The bullets were flying and ricochets screaming around him. When he got more or less over where he thought the two battling females might be, he heedlessly looked over the rail, and through some miracle his head stayed on his shoulders. Nightshade was below him, staggering to her feet in a daze. The dyke was lying on her back, completely still, with a blood-smeared face and a pool of blood growing and welling beneath her head. He dropped the field belt down at her feet and she looked up at him. "Get down, you damned fool," he roared. She held up her hands. He held the M16 out level, dropped it down. She caught it and dropped to the floor herself and rolled behind a concrete pillar. An insane woodpecker the size of a skyscraper suddenly landed on the shopping mall and began to peck. The Russians down the concourse had unlimbered the machine gun. Ricochets were screaming like banshees. Cody ran for the midsection stairs. A wounded FATPO was staggering up the stairs, his M16 barrel weaving in the air. Cody aimed above the flak vest and shot the black in the throat, a messy business. He dropped his M16 and rolled down the stairs, gaggling and gargling and grabbing his spurting shattered neck and jaw. Another FATPO was just charging up the first few stairs at the bottom. This one had somehow managed to get his full body armor on as well as his helmet. Cody fired twice, hit the Fed dead center in his vest and staggered him back, but the FATPO nearly cut him in half with a burst from his Uzi. Cody leaped back off the landing onto the upper stairs and leveled his Kalashnikov in case he saw a helmeted head appear. I can't go down and he can't come up, thought Cody. A Mexican standoff, no pun intended. He ripped open a grenade cylinder on his belt, pulled out the grenade with his left hand, and pulled the pin with his teeth in the best Audie Murphy tradition. In direct contradiction to Eddie Hagen's directions, Cody slowly counted to 3 before he dropped it gently over the rail and let it bounce down the stairs. In the enclosed stairwell, the blast knocked him off his feet and he slid down to the landing, banging his elbow in his head. But when he looked, he saw the FATPO was a smoking mass of cloth and oozing blackened flesh. Cody leaped down the stairs over him. Heedless of the bullets that were whizzing around him like electrons, he ran to join Nightshade behind the pillar. She was firing semi-automatic shots calmly from the M16 and did not acknowledge his presence. Cody leaned out looking for something to shoot at. Then suddenly it stopped. It was dim in the mall now, since so many of the lights had been shot out, an odd twilight as opposed to the neon glare of before. It wasn't silence, since Cody's ears were ringing like an oscillator, earplugs or not, and his right ear hurt. He pulled the primitive earplugs out, and the right one was soaked in blood. He peeped out and scanned the hall. He saw carnage. Every wall was pockmarked and battered. Every piece of furniture was ripped and shredded to kindling. The potted plants and ferns, both natural and artificial, were chopped up into a powder like bay leaves and scattered all over the floor, and lumps of dead meat in cloth and body armor lay everywhere. And there was blood. A sea of blood, already an inch or so deep, mixed with water from the fountain whose pool had been perforated with bullets and was leaking out onto the floor. "Cody, Nightshade," shouted Bells from above. "Are you alive? Do you see anything?" "We're both here, sir," he called back. "I don't see anything moving." The volunteers descended in pairs, with the Russians kept in place to cover them with the machine gun from the upper level. "Minchia," said Bells, shaking his head in awe as he lit a white owl. "It's like the fucking St. Valentine's Day massacre in Chicago down here. Check every one of these bastards carefully," he ordered. "If they're still alive, get rid of them." But not a single coup de grace was necessary. There had been more fatties than the NVA thought at first, for they eventually counted an even 60 enemy bodies. Outnumbered by roughly 3-1, the rebels had wiped the Federals out. Of the 17 volunteers, including Ted from 2 Brigade, the security guard Glenn, and the 2 Bellevue police officers, not a single one was killed or wounded, although Cody's right ear was bleeding slightly. "I thought I might have had a burst eardrum, but I can still hear okay out of it," he told Bells. "Must be just a nick. Once the ringing stops, I think it will be fine." He saw Nightshade lean over and pull her switchblade out of the dead FATPO Dyke's eye and wipe it clean on the corpse's sleeve. He looked closely and saw that the woman's nose had been bitten off. "You didn't eat it, did you?" he asked her. "Those microwave burritos in the refrigerator before we left. You know, Bells took note of the fact that you didn't kiss me goodbye before you left us up there," he said, looking pointedly at the dead officer's mutilated face. "Just so you know, in the future, don't bother. By the way, where are all the hostages? We don't seem to have killed any." "Probably hiding in Dorfman's among the fruit of the looms," she said. "I told them to try and make it in there when the band played Waltzing Matilda." "Here they come," said Cody. Farmer Brown and Thumper were leading the hostages out of Dorfman's menswear. The woman who had been molested and stripped to the waist by the dyke had helped herself to a man's shirt from the stock. "They seemed to be in a daze. This wonderful little girl told us what to do," a middle-aged woman said, crying as she came over and hugged Emily. You look younger than my own daughter. Are you in middle school?"
No ma'am, 11th grade, said Emily. 11th grade. We go to a really rough school, Cody told her.
One of the men said, shaking his head. I never thought I would be glad to see any of you guys, but God, I don't know what to think anymore. I always considered myself to be a loyal American before tonight, but how can I possibly overlook what these government hoodlums did to me and these other innocent people? I just don't understand. Things aren't supposed to be this way, damn it. There comes a time when white people just can't pretend anymore, said Bells. For some people it comes later than others is all. You heard the president's speech tonight? Yes, we all watched in the Radio Shack. Well, even though it isn't formally settled yet, we're the government now, said Bells. But can you make that stick? Asked the man. You heard what that police colonel was saying on the radio tonight? Cody slapped the butt of his Kalashnikov. Yes, sir, he promised. We'll make it stick. A good question, said Jumping Jack Flash. Another search across the shattered mall and in the bandstand area produced no sign of any corpse of one Colonel Wendell Josephson. The gallant colonel seems to have taken the better part of valor, observed Jack dryly. Okay, we got one more thing we gotta do, said Bells. We have to go out front and commandeer those FATPO vehicles and drive them to wherever we're told by brigade, hopefully without being fired on by any of our own ambushes. Now I suspect that Colonel has beat feet, but even fatties probably leave a vehicle guard. They may have taken off as well, but we approach with caution and weapons ready. I'll take point, with our Russian friends and their street sweeper. Eddie, you take 3 guys and stay here and police up all these fatty guns and as much ammo as you can scrounge. We're gonna bring back a whole goddamned Fed arsenal for the NVA. Farmer Brown brings up the rear with Cody and Nightshade. You guys have been up front enough today. Let somebody else get some glory for a change. By this time it was completely dark outside. There were 3 camouflaged FATPO armored personnel vehicles and 2 Humvees parked under the line of streetlights which ran along the sidewalk, pulled up along the curb, as well as an OD green military staff car which had presumably belonged to Colonel Josephson. All appeared to be empty. Okay, one man check out each vehicle with another covering him, said Bells. Do not assume the fatties are all gone, and watch for booby traps. We ain't the only people who know how to set a spring switch or a wire. It turned out that the APVs were all empty and clean. Hey Captain, each of these APVs has an M60 and a 40mm launcher, called one of the volunteers from the back of a truck. Good, we're gonna need those, said Bells, puffing on his cigar. Moving around the staff car, Cody and Nightshade and Farmer Brown saw what appeared to be the body of Colonel Wendell Josephson stretched out on the ground, face down. Hey, looks like we bagged that ATF asshole as well, Captain, said Cody, turning to call over his shoulder to DeBella. Where's the blood? Asked Farmer Brown. I don't see a trail. With a wild animal scream that could have been rage or terror, or both, Josephson rolled over, his Glock service pistol in his hand, firing wildly. Farmer Brown's rifle flew from his hand and clattered to the asphalt, the receiver smashed by a bullet. He was between them and the Federal, and neither Cody nor Emily could fire. Josephson leaped to his feet and grabbed the stunned Farmer Brown, pistol barrel at Brown's head, using him as a human shield. Back off, you fascist bastards! He shrieked hysterically. I'll kill him, Brown went down on one knee and wrestled with his attacker, grabbing at the pistol, which went off. He managed to throw the FATPO off him, slamming him against the staff car, freeing himself. Bells leaned over the hood of the car from the sidewalk and his arm shot out like a striking cobra, the Colt blasting 1-2 times, a column of flame roaring from the muzzle, bright golden cartridge casings soaring high and clattering onto the windshield. Josephson seemed almost to turn a backflip and collapsed in a heap onto the asphalt. Bells ran around and kicked the corpse again and again, shouting enraged obscenities. Farmer Brown leaned against the car. His left sleeve was already a mass of bubbling scarlet, and his left hand a bloody mass. Bells grasped him around the waist, lifted Brown up bodily onto the hood and laid him back, ripping off his shirt to get rid of the soaked sleeve. Emily and Cody already had their first aid packs out. Gimme your canteen, Bells commanded them. He took Cody's, opened it, and poured the water all over Brown's bloody left hand. It's a Dick Tracy special. Just brushed my shoulder, moaned Brown. Your shoulder ain't hit, it's your hand. It's just your whole arm that's going numb. You're gonna be okay, said Bells. But he wasn't going to be okay. The gaping wound was more than a brush. It had gone clear through his palm. The hole was pumping blood. Bells took both sterile gauze pads from their kits and pressed down on from both sides, making the wounded man groan. Cody, each of you have a small bottle of alcohol in your first aid kits. Take out your canteen cup, pass it around to everybody, and fill it up with alcohol to the brim. Donnie, this is going to hurt like the very fires of hell, but we have to stop that bleeding long enough to get you to a doctor. I'm gonna have to sterilize and plug you up long enough to get you help. I know the drill, Bob, gasped Brown. Get on with it. Give me another gauze pad, called Bells. Someone gave him one. He stuck it between the injured man's teeth. Bite down on this so you don't bite off your own tongue. Now hold him down. Cody, Emily, and one of the cops grasped Brown's arms and legs. Bells took the alcohol. Here it comes, Donnie. Slowly he poured it into the bloody mess. Brown jerked and groaned but did not scream. I should have been paying better attention. Like I told you once, Cody, he said groggily. This things we do is like driving on the freeway. A single moment of inattention, and you get hurt. Okay, now we gotta get you to a doctor, said Bells. Where's Mary Beth? Asked Jack, referring to the nurse who served as a company's medic. She's back at the house in Medina and she's set up, but this is going to be a bit beyond her, said Bells. That's major trauma. Somebody's going to have to x-ray it and check the damage, and he'll probably need some kind of cauterizing. And then that whole mess had to be packed. He needs an honest-to-God doctor who knows what to sew up and how, and he's going to need a blood transfusion. Mary Beth may or may not have whole blood in Farmer's type. We have to get him to a hospital, but that means we have to move in on one in force, take over the joint, and stay there guarding him while he's treated, which is going to take a while. It also means we have to abandon all this fatty gear. That's just asking for trouble, Bells, said one of the cops. All the hospitals and clinics in Seattle are already running at full clip tonight with all this fighting going on, and there's going to be FATPO and cops all over them, on the lookout for people with unexplained gunshot wounds. Plus, if the fatties hear you guys have forced your way into some emergency room, they're going to come after you in force, and this time you won't be so lucky. You'll have a pitched battle in a hospital with all kinds of sick and injured people getting in the way, which won't look very good for you people propaganda-wise. And you won't have the element of surprise this time. You won't get off with just one wounded man if you do that. I thought you guys had secret hospitals in Canada? Cody Brock spoke up. Hey, do you guys know if the freeway bridge to Mercer Island is open? He asked the policeman. So far as I know, yeah, said the cop. Why? To Bobby Bells. Sir, you and the unit go ahead and get these vehicles and weapons secured. The NVA need them. Me, and let me take Jack and Nightshade in the Cadillac. We'll get him help. I know where they're